Why the road to El Dorado was a road to failure. Many of you likely have watched the 2000 DreamWorks film The Road to El Dorado, and like myself, you may have enjoyed it greatly and wondered why it was so underrated. Well, I am here to give you an answer to that. For those who have not watched the animation, I recommend watching it. But basically, here's the plot of the story. The film takes place in the early 1500s in Spain, the peak of the age of exploration. Two conmen named Miguel and Tulio manage to board a boat of Hernan Cortes headed for the Americas, with a map to the legendary golden city of El Dorado. They do reach the city, and I won't give away too much of the plot, but what happens is that they are mistaken for the gods. So, after being treated as such, one man, Zekel Khan, the high priest of the area, realizes that they are not gods and tries to kill them. Then, finally, they escape and set off on another adventure with the native women that they got acquainted with in the city, Chell. The film began production in 1995, but then entered hold and was the subject of many rewrites. Due to this, it was sometimes called El Dorado, the lost city on hold. The intensity of the love scenes were toned down, as well as the originally intended PG-13 rating of the movie. At the same time of the development of the movie, the company was making The Prince of Egypt. This meant that more resources were devoted to the latter film rather than the El Dorado film. However, it must also be taken into account that the music was created by great musicians. Some of these musicians and composers had even worked on the renowned Lion King and Prince of Egypt. So, we still haven't truly answered why the movie was a box office and critical failure. It was a flop at the box office, grossing about $76.4 million on a $95 million budget. Rotten Tomatoes gave it at 48%. So even with such a great cast and musicians such as Tim Rice and Elton John, with smaller parts by even Hans Zimmer, the famed composer of many pieces and movies today, and John Powell, why did the film fail so miserably? Why did it why? A major problem was the fact that the story of the movie changed a lot throughout production. At first, it was intended for more adult audiences rather than children with the PG-13 rating. But then the creators decided to tone things down a bit and change it to PG. They added more clothing to the scantily clad Chell and toned down the love scenes. According to a 2000 article in the LA Times, morale was very low among the animators due to the differing views for the movie. Throw in the fact that they were working on the piece Prince of Egypt as well most of the time. And it is no wonder why perhaps the movie was not as good as it could have been. Some native groups were offended by the representation of a native woman, Chell, as, quote, hot and spicy, end quote, according to some sources. Also considering the fact that it was released soon after The Prince of Egypt, it may have been a step backwards for most critics. And would you really go to see a movie that was downgraded by a bunch of critics? Add the fact that it had a bunch of suggestive content, especially that of Chell, and the songs weren't as good as was expected from the Oscar-winning team of The Lion King, and you have a recipe for disaster. All in all, it might be the fact that critics were expecting another Prince of Egypt. When DreamWorks offered up a less thought-provoking, simple animation, they were not really satisfied. There are a variety of factors that played into the reason for The Road to El Dorado becoming a failure, although 17 years later, we can see that it truly wasn't all too bad as critics made it out to be. It just had an unfortunate incident in that it was created shortly after one of the greatest masterpieces of DreamWorks and of the animation world. That unfortunate timing resulted in the road to El Dorado becoming a road to El failure. So, thanks for watching and make sure to subscribe for more great content. This is Real Review, signing out.